I want to thank my mom and my little brother. He texted me at 1 a.m. and said he saw me on CNN and said my father will be proud. I probably vote aye.
Emotional moments today for New York City councilman in front of the show Jumaane Williams as his bills on stop and frisk got just enough votes to override vetoes from Mayor Michael Bloomberg. One of the bills approved today makes it easier to sue the department if someone thinks they've been the victim of racial profiling. The other creates an inspector general to monitor the department, including but not limited to stop and frisk, something Speaker and mayoral candidate Quinn focused on during today's debate.
The inspector general will help make sure that comes to an end. But as importantly, will help make sure that no other police practices in the future ever get to the point where a federal judge has to intervene and tell us that our police department has been acting unconstitutionally.
Speaker Quinn voted for the inspector general, but as expected voted against the racial profiling law, which passed with the bare minimum votes needed for an override. The overrides come after a federal judge ruled stop and frisk unconstitutional last week, a ruling that included the establishment of a federal monitor to oversee the NYPD, but only on stop and frisk. Mayor Bloomberg has vowed to appeal that ruling. There is no appeal or any other action he can take to block today's override vote by the council. So let's get into stop and frisk, and specifically the inspector general. A good idea for oversight of the department or too far?
Only time will tell. I mean, but here's the problem with Ray Kelly and Bloomberg, and they're being so aggressive and talking about stop and frisk, a tactic that they knew where their police officers were violating the Constitution by actually stop, questioning, and searching individuals. We saw that came out in the federal trial. This is what happens when you do something like that. When you have a policy that takes over 10 years, 800,000 stops, over 80% being Black and Latinos. You make it such an aggressive policy. This is now the payback, or the chicken's coming home to roost. And I am concerned about this interfering with the police ability to do their job, or their perception that it will interfere with their ability to do their job. We'll see what happens.
Someone?
I think what you're going to see is really, you've heard of defensive medicine, you're going to have very defensive law enforcement. Cops are going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to do my 8-hour shift, but boy, I'm not going to stick my nose in anywhere because, number one, it's always been physically dangerous, and now I could put myself in kind of legal jeopardy, put my career in jeopardy, so I'm going to abide my 8 hours, and I'm not going to be too aggressive in what I'm doing. That could happen. The aggregate effect in a city of 8 million is catastrophic.
There are inspector general positions in other levels of government. There's an inspector general for the state of New York, correct? That doesn't prevent you from doing your job as an assemblyman.
Certainly not, but this is focused on really on one specific tactic, which has a good track record. So, and the tactic is the interaction with the police officer and the public. So there's a real narrow focus there. So there's a real potential for disruption.
Yeah. And
one can agree or disagree on the impact of this, but what today's votes really were a referendum, Andrew, on Mayor Bloomberg. It's amazing when you're a lame duck with only, 4 months left in office, no one's afraid of you anymore, even if you're a billionaire. Now, what do I mean by that? On these particular issues, Bloomberg was pouting, and remember, he threatened that any member, he said he was going to try and cherry pick one or two to stop this override of his veto. And he said if you didn't go along with him, he was going to spend his money on a primary opponent for you, sort of what the NRA does and what makes them so impactful, because they're able to put fear in officials. That didn't work. So Bloomberg made the threat with all the money, and who knows, maybe he will do it, but it didn't work. They stood up to Mayor Bloomberg.
He needed to swing one vote to stop the override on the lawsuit portion of the bill. Couldn't get it. Went all through the 34, couldn't get one.
That's my concern also is an issue with Black and Latino communities, where I naturally have families that are there. That crime will increase. There's a lot of crime that disproportionately takes place in Black and Latino communities, and now police officers are going to say, well, listen, I'm not going to interfere because I'm going to be accused of racial profiling. if I make an arrest here. I am very concerned about what's going to happen in our Black and Latino communities in terms of fighting crime because of this bill.
My Republican friends, I respect where they're coming from. But put yourself in the perspective of the community in which many people feel their rights were violated simply because they're walking up the street. No one wants crime to go up, but I'm sure grandma and those women that want to be protected, they also don't want their sons thrown up on a wall and searched when they haven't done anything wrong.
If Mayor Bloomberg and Police Commissioner Kelly said, you know what, we've heard the city, this isn't going to happen. But if they said, you know what, okay, we'll abide by the changes, we're going to make the changes, we'll even go with the monitor, just no more, if they could somehow remove this as an issue for the fall campaign, would that help or hurt the Republican candidates?
Well, it doesn't matter really because a federal judge has also ruled on this. So there's nothing the mayor or police commissioner can do. Remember, Judge Scheinlin already ruled that she's putting in a federal monitor, and now the city council says an inspector general. So the only question is, you're now going to have 2 monitors. So it kind of plays to your point. I don't know how it's going to work out, but there are going to be 2 monitors now.
Stop and frisk bad for Republican candidates?
No, absolutely. Stop and frisk is an important tool in fighting crime. Stop, question, and frisk is an important tool in fighting crime. One of many tools, but nothing beats police work. As we saw the other day, 254 guns taken off the street by New York City Police Department had nothing to do with stop and frisk.
Assemblyman, last word?
Yeah, I think this is pushing the Democrat field way to the left, and a lot of people are going to say, whoa, this candidate is way to the left on public safety. I'll feel more comfortable with the Republican candidate.
I don't know. Numbers seem to think that the public's a little wary of stop and frisk at this point. We will see as the campaign continues to unfold. Up next, an element of that ruling from the federal judge in this case in the spotlight, body cameras for police officers. Are they a viable solution to the problem? Turns out one city has been using them and with a lot of success. The question is, could it work in New York? We'll get into that next.